My family canceled my birthday trip to attend my sister's gallery opening at the last minute, even though we'd been planning the Vegas weekend for 6 months, and I'd already paid $3,000 for everyone's hotel rooms. They said Sarah's artistic breakthrough was more important than my silly 30th birthday, and that I should be supportive since she'd been struggling for years. I stood in my living room, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to my mother's voice explain why my milestone birthday, the one I'd been planning since January, didn't matter. Behind her, I could hear Sarah laughing, that high-pitched giggle she'd perfected since we were kids, the one that always meant she'd gotten her way. My father's voice joined in, a low rumble of agreement. Your sister's finally getting recognition, Becca. You understand, don't you? I understood perfectly. I understood that for the last 6 months, I'd coordinated schedules, booked non-refundable rooms at the Bellagio, arranged spa appointments, secured dinner reservations at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, and prepaid for show tickets. I understood that when I'd asked everyone to block off the weekend 3 weeks ago, one final confirmation, they'd all said yes. I understood that Sarah had known about her gallery opening for 2 months and said nothing. And I understood that the $3,000 I'd spent was money I'd saved by working double shifts at the hospital, skipping lunches and cutting back on everything because I wanted this one perfect weekend with my family. Of course I understand, I said, my voice steady. When is the opening? Saturday night. The same night as your Vegas thing, unfortunately. But you can celebrate your birthday anytime, right? Sarah's been waiting for this opportunity for 8 years. You know how hard she's worked? My mother's tone carried that familiar edge of reproach, the one that said I was being selfish for even hesitating. Hard work. Sarah's hard work had been funded by our parents' retirement savings, their second mortgage, and the college fund they'd drained. My college fund. The one they'd promised me since I was 10. While I'd put myself through nursing school with student loans I'd still be paying off at 40. Sarah had gotten a loft in the arts district, supplies, connections, and endless emotional support. Every family dinner for 8 years had revolved around Sarah's struggles, Sarah's visions, Sarah's sensitive artistic soul that couldn't handle criticism or, apparently, a regular job. I'll be there, I said. Through the phone, I heard Sarah squeal with delight. Oh, Becca, I knew you'd understand. You're the best sister ever. This is going to be such an important night for me. My career is finally taking off. I ended the call and sat down at my kitchen table, pulling up my banking app. $3,000. Gone. Non-refundable. The hotel had made that abundantly clear. I opened my email and found the message from Sarah's gallery, the one she'd CC'd the family on 2 months ago. The opening had been scheduled for weeks. She'd known. They'd all known. And they'd waited until 5 days before my trip to tell me it was canceled. But I noticed something else in that email. Something Sarah probably thought I'd never catch because I was just a nurse, not an artistic genius. The gallery opening wasn't Sarah's show. It was a group exhibition. Sarah had one wall, 6 paintings. The email called it a emerging artists showcase. My sister's big breakthrough was sharing space with 11 other artists in a collective show. I made 3 phone calls that night. The first was to my cousin Jennifer, who worked in art authentication and knew every gallery owner in the city. The second was to my hospital administrator about picking up extra shifts. The third was to a private investigator, whose card I'd kept in my wallet for 2 years. Ever since I'd helped his daughter in the ER, and he'd told me to call if I ever needed anything. By midnight, I had a plan. By Thursday, I had information. And by Friday morning, I was ready. The gallery opening started at 7 p.m. Saturday. I arrived at 6:30, wearing the black dress I'd bought for my birthday dinner in Vegas, carrying a bottle of expensive champagne and wearing a smile that made Sarah beam when she saw me walk in. Becca, you came early. Oh my God, you look amazing. She hugged me, her arms thin and dramatic, her perfume overwhelming. She'd always worn too much perfume. I can't believe you're here. I know you gave up your Vegas trip, but this is so much more meaningful, right? Like, birthdays happen every year, but this is my moment. I wouldn't miss it, I said, handing her the champagne. Where are Mom and Dad? They're coming at 7 with Aunt Carol and Uncle Pete. They wanted to make an entrance when there's a crowd. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, I think Mom's already planning how to brag about me at her book club. I smiled and let her lead me to her wall of paintings. 6 canvases, each priced between $800 and $1. $200. Abstract pieces with bold colors and dramatic brush strokes that looked like every other abstract painting I'd seen in every coffee shop and hotel lobby for the past decade. But I made the appropriate appreciative sounds while Sarah explained her creative process and emotional journey that each piece represented. This one, she said, pointing to a canvas of red and black swirls, represents the struggle of being an artist in a capitalist society. The red is passion. The black is oppression. I call it silenced voice. I studied it carefully, then asked, how long did it take you to paint? 4 hours, but I'd been conceptualizing it for weeks. That's the thing non-artists don't understand. The real work happens in your mind before the brush ever touches canvas. 4 hours. I thought about the 12-hour shifts I regularly worked, the nights I'd held dying patients' hands, the times I'd performed CPR until my arms screamed, the endless paperwork and the emotional toll of watching families grieve. 4 hours for $1, $200. It's beautiful, I said. Really captures something raw. By 7:15, the gallery was packed. My parents arrived with half the extended family, all dressed up and ready to celebrate Sarah's genius. My mother wore her best jewelry, the pieces she usually reserved for weddings. My father had actually ironed his shirt. Aunt Carol brought flowers. Uncle Pete had his expensive camera around his neck, ready to document everything. Sarah worked the room like she'd been born for it, floating from guest to guest with a wine glass in hand, laughing and gesturing dramatically. She'd always been good at performing. I watched her touch people's arms, lean in close when they spoke, toss her hair back when she laughed, every movement calculated for maximum effect. I stood near the back, sipping water, watching, waiting. At 8 o'clock, the gallery owner, Marcus Whitley, clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. He was exactly as my cousin had described, mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit, and the practiced smile of someone who'd spent decades selling art to people with more money than taste. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began. "We're thrilled to showcase some of the most promising emerging talent in our city. These 12 artists represent the future of contemporary art, and we're honored to provide them this platform." He went on, introducing each artist briefly, saving Sarah for last. And finally making her gallery debut, Sarah Thornwood, whose bold abstract work explores themes of struggle, identity, and passion in the modern world. The room applauded. My parents beamed. Sarah raised her glass, soaking in the attention. This was her moment, the culmination of 8 years of pursuing her dream, while everyone else paid her bills. I moved through the crowd, positioning myself near Marcus. When he finished his speech and the crowd dispersed to mingle again, I approached him with a smile. "Mr. Whitley, I'm Rebecca Thornwood, Sarah's sister." I extended my hand. "Beautiful show. I'm so proud of her." "Ah, yes. Sarah mentioned you. She said you gave up a birthday trip to be here. That's real sisterly love." He shook my hand warmly, already scanning the room for his next conversation. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice low and casual, "I was hoping to discuss something with you privately. It's about Sarah's work. There's something you should know before these pieces sell." His expression shifted immediately, the gallery owner's instinct for trouble kicking in. "Is there a problem? Could we step into your office? Just for a moment. I promise it's important." 5 minutes later, I walked out of Marcus Whitley's office and watched him make a beeline for Sarah, his face no longer showing that practiced smile. I'd shown him the photographs my private investigator had compiled. Sarah in another artist's studio, the same paintings on their walls that were now on Sarah's gallery wall. The PayPal transactions where she'd paid that artist $3,000 for 6 paintings she'd then claimed as her own work. $3,000, the exact amount I'd spent on the Vegas trip. Apparently, Sarah had decided my birthday money was better spent buying herself a shortcut to success. I watched the color drain from Sarah's face as Marcus spoke to her in sharp, quiet tones. I watched her shake her head, watched her mouth form denials that even from across the room looked desperate and unconvincing. I watched Marcus gesture toward his office, his body language making it clear this wasn't a request. My mother appeared at my elbow. "What's going on? Why does Marcus look so angry?" "I have no idea," I said, sipping my water. "Maybe there's an issue with one of the other artists." We both watched as Sarah followed Marcus into his office. Through the glass walls, we could see her gesturing frantically, her performance skills in full effect. But Marcus was holding his phone, showing her something, probably the same evidence I'd given him, and with each image, Sarah seemed to shrink. The office door opened. Marcus walked out first, his face professionally neutral but his jaw tight. Sarah followed, her eyes red, mascara already starting to run. She looked directly at me. And in that moment, she knew. She knew I'd done this. She knew I'd found out her secret and destroyed her in one move. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced, his voice cutting through the gallery chatter, "I apologize, but we need to remove Sarah Thornwood's pieces from tonight's exhibition. There's been a misunderstanding about the artwork's provenance that needs to be resolved." The room went silent. My mother gasped. My father started toward Sarah, but she was already moving toward the exit, her face buried in her hands. The crowd parted for her, whispers beginning immediately. Within 30 seconds, she was gone. My mother turned to me, her face pale. "Did you know about this?" "Know about what?" I met her eyes steadily. "I just got here, same as you." But she knew. Just like Sarah knew. They both knew exactly who'd done this. The gallery cleared out within 20 minutes. Marcus offered stiff apologies to the remaining guests while 2 staff members removed Sarah's paintings from the wall, leaving rectangular shadows where her breakthrough had briefly existed. My parents stood frozen near the champagne table, my mother clutching her purse like a life preserver, while my father's face cycled through confusion, anger, and something that might have been embarrassment. Aunt Carol approached me first. "Rebecca, do you know what happened? Where did Sarah go?" "I think she left," I said simply. "Maybe the pressure got to her. You know how sensitive she is." Uncle Pete was already scrolling through his phone, probably deleting the photos he'd planned to post on social media about his niece, the talented artist. The other family members clustered together, their excited chatter replaced by uncomfortable murmurs. This was supposed to be a celebration, and I'd turned it into a scandal. My mother finally moved, walking toward me with deliberate steps. Her face had shifted from shock to that familiar expression of maternal protection, the one she always wore when defending Sarah from consequences. "We need to go find your sister. She must be devastated." "I'm sure she is," I agreed. "This is your fault somehow, isn't it?" She kept her voice low, but the accusation was clear. "You couldn't stand that tonight was about her instead of you." I smiled, the same calm smile I'd given her on the phone 5 days ago. "Mom, I have no idea what you're talking about. I came to support Sarah, just like you asked. If there's a problem with her artwork, that's between her and the gallery. You've always been jealous of her creativity, her talent. Her talent for what exactly?" I interrupted quietly. "Spending other people's money? Because she's definitely talented at that." My father joined us, his hand on my mother's shoulder. "Let's not do this here. We'll talk to Sarah, sort this out, and figure out what happened." "What happened is fraud," I said, loud enough that several nearby guests turned to look. "Those paintings weren't hers. She bought them from another artist and tried to pass them off as her own work. Marcus has the proof." My mother's face flushed. "That's absurd. Sarah would absolutely. And she paid $3,000 for those paintings. Interesting amount, don't you think? The exact same amount I spent on the birthday trip you all canceled to be here tonight." The words hung in the air between us. My father's expression shifted as understanding dawned. My mother opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "You're saying she used your money?" "I'm saying she made a choice about how to spend $3,000, and now she's dealing with the consequences of that choice." I set down my water glass. "But don't worry about Sarah. She'll land on her feet. She always does. Someone always catches her." I walked toward the exit, leaving my parents standing there with the wreckage of Sarah's dreams scattered around them. Outside, the evening air was cool and sharp. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, looking at the $3,000 charge that had gutted my savings. Money gone, birthday ruined, family evening destroyed. But when I opened my email, there was a new message from Marcus Whitley's assistant, sent 10 minutes ago. "Per our conversation, confirming your commission check for $400 will be processed Monday. Thank you for bringing this matter to our attention before any sales were completed. $2,400. Marcus had been grateful enough for the warning that he'd offered me a finder's fee, claiming it was standard gallery practice to compensate anyone who prevented fraud. It wasn't quite what I'd lost, but it was enough to book a solo trip to Vegas next month. Just me. No family obligations. No dramatic sisters. No disappointing parents. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "How could you do this to me?" I typed back, "How could you steal my birthday money and think I wouldn't find out?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "I was going to pay you back when the paintings sold, with money from paintings you didn't create. That's not paying me back. That's just extending the fraud." The dots appeared and vanished several times before her next message came through. "Mom and Dad are right about you. You've always been jealous. You can't stand that I have talent and passion while you're just a nurse." Just a nurse? The phrase hit exactly as she'd intended, except instead of wounding me, it crystallized something that had been building for years. I was just a nurse. Just someone who saved lives, who worked exhausting hours, who had earned every single thing I'd ever achieved without anyone's retirement fund or second mortgage backing me up. Just someone who paid her own bills, honored her commitments, and didn't steal from family members. I didn't respond to Sarah's text. Instead, I called Jennifer, my cousin who worked in art authentication. "Hey, Becca, I saw the gallery posts already getting deleted. Guessing it went as planned?" "Better than planned. Marcus was grateful, but I need another favor." "Name it." "Sarah bought those paintings from an artist named David Reeves. He has a studio in the Warehouse District. I need you to contact him and offer to feature his actual work in a real show. He deserves recognition for his talent, and Sarah deserves nothing." Jennifer laughed. "I love it. Helping the real artist while making sure your sister's reputation is thoroughly destroyed. You're diabolical when you want to be. I prefer to think of it as justice-oriented. Same thing, really. I'll reach out to David tomorrow. If his work is as good as those photos suggest, I know several galleries that would be interested. He'll get the career Sarah was trying to steal." After we hung up, I started walking. Not toward my car, not toward home, but just walking through the city streets as the evening settled into night. My phone kept buzzing. Texts from my mother, my father, Aunt Carol, even Uncle Pete. I ignored them all. They'd spent years prioritizing Sarah's feelings, Sarah's dreams, Sarah's needs over everything and everyone else. They'd canceled my birthday without a second thought because Sarah's fake art show mattered more than the daughter who'd actually made something of herself. But I'd learned something important tonight. I'd learned that I didn't need their validation or their presence to celebrate my life. I'd learned that I was capable of executing a plan with surgical precision when necessary. And I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, strategic, and absolutely devastating. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from my mother. I answered. "Rebecca Ann Thornwood, you come back here right now. Your sister is hysterical, and this family needs to talk about what you've done." "What I've done?" "I attended an art show. That's what you asked me to do instead of celebrating my birthday. You sabotaged your sister's career." Sarah sabotaged her own career when she committed fraud. I just made sure the gallery owner knew about it before innocent people bought stolen artwork. I kept walking, my heels clicking on the pavement. "Tell me, Mom, were you ever planning to acknowledge that she used my birthday money to buy those paintings?" Silence. Then, "She said she was going to surprise you with double the amount after they sold. So you knew. You knew she'd taken my money and you still expected me to cancel my trip and show up to celebrate her. It's more complicated than that." "No, it's really not. It's actually very simple. Sarah stole from me. You enabled it, and I decided I'd had enough." I stopped walking and looked up at the city lights. I'm done being the responsible one who sacrifices everything while Sarah gets endless chances and infinite forgiveness. I'm done funding her dreams while mine don't matter. I'm done. "You're being incredibly selfish." "Good. It's about time." I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked my father's number. And Sarah's, and every other family member who'd chosen Sarah's feelings over basic decency. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. "This is David Reeves. Someone named Jennifer just called about featuring my work. She said you're the one who made it happen. I don't know the full story, but thank you. Those paintings I sold to that woman were supposed to help me pay rent, but knowing they might get proper recognition means everything." I saved his number and typed back. "Your work deserves to be seen. Make sure you sign every single piece with your name from now on." His response came immediately. "Already do. Always have. Sarah tried to paint over my signature on those pieces, but I use a special UV reactive ink under the visible signature. It's still there if anyone checks with a blacklight." I stopped walking. A UV reactive signature. Hidden proof of authenticity that Sarah hadn't known existed. Evidence that would make her fraud even more undeniable if Marcus decided to pursue legal action. David had protected his work without even knowing how much that protection would matter. "That's brilliant." I texted back. "You're going to have an amazing career. Thanks to you. The woman who is going to pass off my work as hers. I hope she learned something tonight." I thought about Sarah, probably at home crying in my mother's arms, being comforted and coddled, being told that this was all a misunderstanding and that me and Rebecca had overreacted. Sarah never learned. That was her superpower and her fatal flaw. But I'd learned. I'd learned that I didn't have to accept being treated as less important, less valuable, less worthy of celebration than my sister. I'd learned that I could fight back strategically and effectively. And I'd learned that sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you need. I opened my banking app again and looked at the pending commission from Marcus. Then I opened a travel site and started browsing. Vegas next month, solo. Maybe Paris in the spring. Possibly Tokyo in the fall. All the trips I'd never taken because I'd been too busy being responsible, too busy saving for family obligations, too busy putting everyone else's happiness before my own. My birthday was in 3 days, Tuesday, the day I should have been waking up in a luxury hotel suite in Vegas, getting ready for a spa day and a celebration dinner with people who supposedly loved me. Instead, I'd be working a 12-hour shift at the hospital, probably dealing with patients who'd be more grateful for my presence than my own family had ever been. But Wednesday, my day off, I'd wake up in my own apartment, make myself an expensive breakfast, and start planning adventures that had nothing to do with family obligation and everything to do with the life I wanted to build. A life where being just a nurse was something to be proud of. A life where my birthday mattered. A life where I didn't subsidize someone else's dreams at the cost of my own. Sarah had wanted her breakthrough moment. She'd gotten one. Just not the kind she'd imagined. And I'd gotten mine too. The moment I realized I was done being the family doormat, Tuesday morning arrived with gray skies and the smell of rain. I woke up at 5 a.m. for my birthday shift at Seattle Grace Memorial Hospital, made coffee in the kitchen of my small apartment, and put on my scrubs. No calls from family, no texts. The silence was exactly what I'd expected, and surprisingly, exactly what I wanted. At the hospital, my coworkers had decorated the nurses' station with streamers and a small cake. Maria, the charge nurse, hugged me. "Happy birthday, Becca. 30 looks good on you. Thanks. Feels the same as 29 so far. Wait until you hit 40. That's when things get interesting." She cut the cake while the morning shift gathered around. "So did you do Vegas? You've been talking about that trip for months." "Plans changed," I said simply. "Family thing." The knowing looks from my coworkers told me they understood. Everyone had family complications. We'd all covered shifts for each other's weddings, funerals, and crises. We'd all made sacrifices. But there was something different in their eyes now, a kind of respect that hadn't been there before. Maybe they sensed that something in me had shifted. My first patient of the day was an 82-year-old woman named Dorothy Castellano who'd fallen and broken her hip. While I checked her vitals and adjusted her pain medication, she studied my face with sharp, intelligent eyes. "You look like someone who just won a battle," she said. Do I? I've been alive long enough to recognize that expression. My daughter had it once after she finally divorced her worthless husband. "What battle did you win?" I smiled despite myself. "How do you know I won?" "Because you're here working on your birthday." She nodded toward the birthday badge someone had clipped to my scrubs. "Instead of wherever you'd planned to be, but you don't look defeated. You look like a person who made a choice and stands by it." "I exposed my sister's fraud at her art gallery opening on Saturday," I said, surprising myself with the honesty. She'd stolen $3,000 from me to buy paintings she claimed were hers. I made sure everyone knew the truth. Dorothy's eyes widened. Then she laughed, a raspy sound that turned into a cough. When she recovered, she grabbed my hand with surprising strength. "Good. Too many people let family walk all over them because of some idiotic idea that blood makes everything forgivable. Blood doesn't mean anything if the person bleeding you dry doesn't respect you." My mother disagrees. "I've been getting voicemails I haven't listened to." "Don't listen to them. Not yet. Let them sit with what they did. Let them realize that you're not going to come crawling back." She squeezed my hand. "My daughter waited 15 years to leave that husband because everyone kept telling her marriage was sacred. Family was everything. By the time she finally left, he'd drained her bank accounts, destroyed her credit, and convinced her she was worthless. You know what the family said when she finally got free? What? That she should have left sooner. The same people who'd pressured her to stay then blamed her for staying too long." Dorothy's grip tightened. "Don't be like my daughter. Don't waste 15 years hoping people will suddenly value you. They've shown you who they are. Believe them." After I left Dorothy's room, I found myself thinking about her words through the rest of my shift. Between inserting IVs, updating charts, and responding to call buttons, I kept coming back to that phrase. They've shown you who they are. Believe them. My family had shown me for 30 years that Sarah's happiness mattered more than mine. Every Christmas where her expensive gifts outweighed my practical ones. Every birthday where her latest crisis somehow overshadowed my celebration. Every achievement of mine that was met with polite acknowledgement, while Sarah's smallest accomplishment warranted a family gathering. They'd shown me repeatedly that I was the supporting character in Sarah's story. But I'd believed for 30 years that if I was just patient enough, responsible enough, successful enough, they'd eventually see my value. I'd believed the lie that good behavior would be rewarded, that being the stable one meant being the cherished one. Dorothy was right. I'd been waiting for something that was never going to happen. During my lunch break, I sat in my car and finally listened to the voicemails. There were 14 of them. My mother's first message left Saturday night. Rebecca, call me immediately. Your sister is devastated. Whatever you think she did, we need to discuss this as a family. My father's message, Sunday morning. Becca, your mother is extremely upset. Sarah won't stop crying. This has gone too far. Call us. Sarah's message, Sunday afternoon. I know you hate me, but this is cruel even for you. You've ruined everything. Marcus is threatening legal action. I could go to jail because of you. Is that what you want? Your sister in jail? That one made me laugh out loud. Sarah had committed fraud, but somehow my exposing it made me the villain. Classic Sarah logic. My mother again, Sunday evening. I've spoken to Marcus Whitley. He says you provided evidence against Sarah, your own sister. I don't even know who you are anymore. Call me so we can fix this. Fix this. Code 4, make Sarah's consequences disappear. More messages from various family members, all variations on the same theme. I was heartless, jealous, vindictive. Sarah was devastated, humiliated, possibly facing criminal charges. The family was fractured. All because I couldn't let Sarah have her moment. The final message was from my mother, left this morning at 7 a.m. Rebecca, it's your birthday. Whatever else is happening, you're still my daughter. Please call me. We can work through this. Sarah wants to apologize. I deleted all 14 messages without responding. Then I noticed I had 3 emails from addresses I didn't recognize. I opened the first one. Ms. Thornwood, my name is Patricia Holbrook. I'm a journalist with Seattle Arts Magazine. I'm writing an article about fraud in the local art scene, and your sister's case has come to my attention. I'd like to interview you about how you discovered the fraud and what motivated you to come forward. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. The second email was from a lawyer named Richard Morrison. I represent David Reeves, the artist whose work was fraudulently displayed by Sarah Thornwood. Mr. Reeves is considering legal action and would like to discuss your potential testimony as a witness. Your cooperation would be greatly appreciated. The third was from Marcus Whitley himself. Rebecca, I wanted to reach out personally to thank you again for your integrity in this matter. The gallery has decided to pursue charges against your sister to protect our reputation. I understand this may be difficult given your family relationship, but I hope you understand we have no choice. Your commission check has been expedited and should arrive by Friday. I sat in my car, reading the emails twice, 3 times. The situation was expanding beyond what I'd initially planned. I'd wanted to humiliate Sarah, to make her feel a fraction of the disappointment and betrayal I'd felt. But now there were journalists, lawyers, and potential criminal charges. Sarah could actually go to jail. The thought should have made me feel guilty. It should have made me want to call my mother, to try to minimize the damage, to be the responsible sister who fixed things. That's what the old Rebecca would have done. The one who'd spent 30 years smoothing over Sarah's mistakes, who'd loaned money that was never repaid, who'd covered for her when she missed family events, or showed up late or forgot important occasions. But I wasn't that Rebecca anymore. That Rebecca had died somewhere between my mother's phone call on Wednesday and Sarah's humiliation on Saturday night. I forwarded all 3 emails to my personal account and marked them for follow-up. Then I called Jennifer. Hey, birthday girl. How's 30 treating you? Complicated. Have you talked to David Reeves yet? I have, actually. Met with him yesterday afternoon. Becca, his work is incredible. Really incredible. I'm setting up a show at the Morrison Gallery in March. He's going to be huge. That's great. He deserves it. I paused. He's got a lawyer now. They might pursue charges against Sarah. Good. She committed fraud. Actions have consequences. Jennifer's voice was matter of fact. Are you having second thoughts? No. But my family's melting down, and I'm getting interview requests from journalists. So talk to the journalists, tell your story. Sarah made her choices. You made yours. Neither of you should have to hide. After we hung up, I sat with that idea. Tell my story. For 30 years, I'd let Sarah be the one with stories. Tales of artistic struggle, creative breakthroughs, the sensitive soul navigating a harsh world. My stories had been boring in comparison. Nursing school, job promotions, successful patient outcomes. Nothing dramatic or artistic. Nothing worth celebrating with hotel suites and canceled birthdays. But maybe my story was worth telling. Maybe there was power in being the person who worked double shifts, who saved for 6 months to create a perfect weekend, who discovered fraud and refused to ignore it. Maybe I didn't need to be an artist to matter. I replied to Patricia Holbrook's email. I'm willing to be interviewed. I work 12-hour shifts at Seattle Grace Memorial through Thursday. I'm available Friday afternoon. Then I replied to Richard Morrison. I'll cooperate with any legal proceedings. Sarah committed fraud using money she took from me without permission. David Reeves deserves justice for his stolen work. I didn't reply to Marcus Whitley. His message didn't require a response. and the commission check spoke for itself. My afternoon shift was busier than the morning. A car accident brought in 3 patients who needed immediate attention. A heart attack in the ER required all hands on deck. An elderly man went into respiratory distress in post-op. By the time my shift ended at 7 p.m., I was exhausted in the way that only a 12-hour nursing shift can make you. Physically drained, but mentally sharp. Running on adrenaline and muscle memory. Maria caught me as I was clocking out. "Hey, a few of us are going to Murphy's for drinks. Birthday tradition. You in?" I started to decline, then changed my mind. "Yeah, I'm in." Murphy's was a dive bar 3 blocks from the hospital, the kind of place where nurses and doctors went to decompress after brutal shifts. The lights were dim, the music loud enough to discourage serious conversation, and the drink strong enough to help you forget whatever trauma you'd witnessed that day. 6 of us crammed into a booth. Maria, 2 other nurses named Katie and Deshawn, an ER doctor named James, and 2 paramedics I'd worked with dozens of times. They bought me shots. We toasted to surviving another shift. Someone told a story about a patient who'd come in with a bizarre foreign object situation that had us all laughing until we cried. Nobody asked about Vegas. Nobody mentioned family. We just existed in that moment. A group of medical professionals who understood that sometimes the best birthday celebration was cheap whiskey and stories from the front lines. Around 9 p.m., my phone started buzzing. I glanced at it and saw my mother's number. Not blocked anymore because I'd never actually blocked her. I'd just stopped answering. She called 3 times in 15 minutes. Then my father called. Then Sarah. James noticed. "You going to get that?" "Nope." "Family?" "How'd you guess?" "It's always family." He took a drink of his beer. "My sister tried to borrow $20,000 from me last year for her boyfriend's business opportunity. When I said no, she didn't speak to me for 8 months. Now she calls occasionally to tell me I was right and he was a scam artist, but she never actually apologizes for the 8-month silent treatment." "Do you miss her?" I asked. "Sometimes. But mostly I appreciate the peace." My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my Aunt Carol. "Your mother is beside herself. At least let her know you're alive. It's your birthday. Don't be cruel." "Don't be cruel." I typed back. "I'm alive. Having drinks with coworkers? Tell Mom I'm fine." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Sarah needs you. She's talking about hurting herself." I stared at that message, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Sarah talking about hurting herself. The nuclear option. The thing she pulled out whenever she needed immediate attention and forgiveness. She'd done it when our parents refused to fund her 6th month in Europe. She'd done it when a boyfriend broke up with her. She'd done it when a professor gave her a C on a project she'd barely completed. And every single time, the family had rallied around her, given her whatever she wanted, erased whatever consequences she was facing. Because you couldn't risk it, could you? You couldn't risk ignoring a suicide threat, even if you suspected it was manipulation, because what if this was the one time it was real? I'd fallen for it a dozen times over the years. Rushed home from college when she'd dramatically called me sobbing about pills and bridges. Loaned her money I couldn't afford to lose because refusing might push her over the edge. Canceled plans, sacrificed opportunities, rearranged my life around her emotional emergencies. But tonight, sitting in a dive bar with people who saved actual lives every single day, I realized something. I wasn't responsible for Sarah's choices. Not her fraud, not her emotional state, not her threats. She was 32 years old, and if she was genuinely suicidal, she needed professional help, not another round of family enabling. I typed back to Aunt Carol. "If Sarah is threatening self-harm, call 911 and have her evaluated by professionals. I'm a nurse, not a therapist, and I'm off duty." The response came fast. "How can you be so cold? She's your sister, and she committed fraud using money she stole from me. Actions have consequences. If she needs mental health support, I hope she gets it. But I'm not coming to fix this." I put my phone face down on the table and ordered another drink. Katie leaned over. "Everything okay? Sister drama. She's mad I exposed her fraud, and now she's threatening suicide to make me feel guilty." "Classic manipulation," Deshawn said. "My brother pulls that move too. If she's serious, she needs a hospital. If she's not serious, she needs to learn it doesn't work anymore." That's what I figured. I raised my glass. "To boundaries. To boundaries," they echoed, and we drank. By the time I left Murphy's at 11 p.m., I had 7 more missed calls and 16 text messages, but I didn't look at them. I drove home through empty streets, parked in my apartment complex lot, and climbed the stairs to my second-floor unit. The apartment was quiet and dark. No streamers, no cake, no family gathering. Just me and the life I'd built with my own 2 hands. I changed into pajamas, made tea, and sat on my couch with my laptop. I pulled up my bank account and looked at my upcoming expenses: rent, student loans, car payment, groceries, utilities. Then I looked at the pending commission from Marcus, $2,400, enough to book that Vegas trip for one, enough to start building a savings account that nobody could drain for their own purposes. I opened a travel site and started browsing. Not Vegas. I'd do that next month when the commission cleared, but something for this weekend. Something spontaneous and completely selfish. A bed and breakfast on the coast. 2 nights, ocean views, spa services, a restaurant with a Michelin star. $800 total. I booked it without hesitating. Then I texted Maria. Taking Friday and Saturday off. Personal days. Can you cover? Her response came immediately. Done. Have fun. You've earned it. I set my phone down and looked around my small apartment. 1 bedroom, basic furniture, photographs I'd taken on the rare vacations I'd managed between school and work. Nothing artistic or impressive by Sarah's standards, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture bought with money I'd earned, every bill paid on time with my own paychecks, every inch of space representing independence and responsibility. Sarah had her loft with its exposed brick and dramatic lighting, funded by our parents' sacrifice. But she'd also just had her entire career destroyed because she'd taken shortcuts, stolen from others, and assumed she'd never face consequences. I had a small apartment and student loans and a 12-hour birthday shift behind me. But I also had integrity, real skills that helped people, and the satisfaction of knowing I'd built everything myself without fraud or family handouts. My phone buzzed one more time. My mother. Please, Rebecca. Just come home. Let's talk. Sarah needs you. I turned my phone off completely and went to bed. Tomorrow I'd work another 12-hour shift. Thursday I'd finish my work week. And Friday afternoon, I'd drive to the coast, check into a beautiful bed and breakfast, and celebrate my 30th birthday the way I should have celebrated it from the beginning, alone, peaceful, and beholden to no one. Sarah didn't need me. She needed consequences, and I was finally done protecting her from them. The article in Seattle Arts Magazine dropped Thursday morning. I saw it during my coffee break, sitting in the hospital cafeteria with my phone propped against my water bottle. The headline read, "Local Artist Exposed. Gallery Fraud Reveals Deeper Issues in Seattle's Art Scene." Patricia Holbrook had been thorough. The article detailed Sarah's fraud, included statements from Marcus Whitley and David Reeves, and featured a full interview with me that laid out exactly what had happened: the canceled birthday trip, the stolen money, my discovery of the fraud, and my decision to expose it. The quote Patricia had highlighted in bold made my chest tighten. My sister spent 8 years being funded by our family while I put myself through nursing school and worked my way up in my career. She had every advantage, every opportunity, and she still chose to steal, from another artist and from me. I refused to let that theft continue. My phone started ringing immediately. I declined the call from my mother, then the one from my father, then 3 calls from numbers I didn't recognize that were probably reporters. By lunch, the article had been shared 400 times on social media. By the end of my shift, it was trending on local Twitter with the hashtag #JarArtFraud. I drove home in silence, processing what I'd set in motion. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was public record, permanent and searchable. Sarah's name was now permanently linked to fraud. Our family's dysfunction was exposed for everyone to see. There was no taking it back, no softening it, no making it private again. When I got home, there was a car parked in my building's lot that I recognized, my father's silver Honda. He was sitting on the steps leading to my apartment, looking older than I remembered, his shoulders slumped. "Becca," he said when he saw me, "we need to talk." "I don't think we do." I moved past him toward my door. "Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I unlocked my door but didn't invite him in. "You have 5 minutes. Out here." He stood slowly, his knees cracking. "That article. You talked to a reporter about family business." "I talked to a reporter about fraud that happened to involve my sister. There's a difference. You've destroyed her reputation. Her career is over before it even started. Her career was over the moment she decided to commit fraud. I just made sure other people didn't get hurt in the process." I set my bag down inside the doorway. "Is that all? Your mother and I raised you better than this. Family doesn't air dirty laundry in public. Family protects each other. Really? Because from where I'm standing, this family only protects Sarah. Everyone else is expected to sacrifice and stay silent. I leaned against the doorframe. Where were you when I was working 3 jobs to put myself through nursing school? Where was the family protection when Sarah convinced you to drain my college fund? Where was the loyalty when you all canceled my birthday trip at the last minute? We made mistakes. No, you made choices. Sarah made choices, and I've made mine. I'm done being the family bank account and emotional support system for people who don't respect me. My father's face flushed. Sarah made a mistake, yes, but she's sorry. She wants to make it right. Sarah's sorry she got caught. There's a difference. I checked my watch. Your 5 minutes are up. Rebecca Ann Thornwood, I am your father. And you chose Sarah over me every single time it mattered. You don't get to show up now and demand loyalty you never gave. I stepped inside my apartment. Go home, Dad. Take care of Sarah. That's what you're good at. I closed the door before he could respond and locked it. Through the door, I heard him stand there for another minute, maybe hoping I'd change my mind. Maybe working up the courage to knock again. Then his footsteps retreated down the stairs. I leaned against the closed door, breathing hard, my heart pounding. I'd just dismissed my father like he was a bothersome stranger. The old Rebecca would have felt guilty immediately, would have chased him down the stairs apologizing, would have agreed to family mediation or counseling or whatever compromise they wanted, but the new Rebecca just felt relieved. Relieved that the conversation was over. Relieved that I'd held my boundary. Relieved that I wasn't going to waste energy on people who'd already shown me I didn't matter to them. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is David Reeves. I just read the article. Thank you for speaking up. My lawyer says your testimony will be crucial if this goes to court. Also, Jennifer showed me the preliminary marketing for my show in March. It's surreal seeing my name credited properly. I owe you everything. I texted back. You don't owe me anything. You created beautiful work. Sarah tried to steal it. I just made sure the truth came out. Congratulations on the show. His response. Still, if you ever need anything at all, let me know. I'm serious. I saved his number and smiled. At least someone good was coming from this disaster. David would get the recognition he deserved. His career would flourish. And Sarah's attempt to shortcut her way to success had actually ended up launching someone else's dreams. There was poetry in that. Painful, sharp-edged poetry, but poetry nonetheless. I spent Thursday evening packing for my weekend trip to the coast. 2 days of solitude, ocean views, and spa treatments. No family, no drama, no expectations. Just me and the sound of waves, and the satisfaction of knowing I'd finally chosen myself. Friday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. All from family members, all left between midnight and 6 a.m. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I made coffee, ate breakfast, and methodically went through my apartment making sure everything was locked and secure before I left. At 9 a.m., as I was loading my overnight bag into my car, my mother appeared in the parking lot. She looked terrible, hair uncombed, makeup smeared from crying, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. I'd never seen my mother look anything less than perfectly put together. Rebecca, please, just listen. How did you know I'd be here? But I already knew. My father must have told her about yesterday's visit. Sarah tried to kill herself last night. The words hit like a physical blow. I gripped my car door. What? She took pills. A lot of pills. Your father found her and called 911. She's at Harborview Medical Center in the psych ward. My mother's voice broke. She left a note. It said she couldn't live with the shame of what you'd done to her, what I'd done to her. Even in a suicide attempt, Sarah was making me the villain. Is she going to be okay? I asked. Physically, yes. They pumped her stomach. But mentally, my mother wiped her eyes. She needs you, Becca. She needs her sister. No, she needs professional help. She needs therapy and psychiatric care. She doesn't need me to tell her that committing fraud was okay, or that she shouldn't face consequences. She almost died. And I'm sorry about that, genuinely. But her suicide attempt doesn't erase what she did. It doesn't mean I have to forgive her or pretend this didn't happen. I put my bag in the trunk. Mom, Sarah has been threatening suicide for manipulation purposes since she was 16. Every time she doesn't get what she wants, every time someone holds her accountable, she threatens to hurt herself. And every time, the family rushes in to fix everything and erase the consequences. That's not helping her. That's enabling her. So you're just going to leave? While your sister is in the hospital? I'm going to the coast for the weekend I should have had last week for my birthday. The birthday that got canceled so everyone could attend Sarah's fraud exhibition. I opened my car door. Sarah is getting the help she actually needs, professional psychiatric care, That's more than she's ever gotten from this family's cycle of enabling and protection. I don't know you anymore, my mother whispered. Good. Because the person you knew spent 30 years trying to earn love that was only ever going to go to Sarah. I'm someone different now. Someone who values herself. Someone who refuses to set herself on fire to keep other people warm. I got in my car and started the engine. My mother stood in the parking lot, looking small and broken, and I felt a pang of something that might have been guilt or might have been grief for the relationship we'd never actually had. But I didn't stop. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't change my mind. I drove away, leaving my mother standing there, and headed toward the coast, toward ocean views and spa treatments and 2 days of peace, toward a life where my birthday mattered and my boundaries were respected and my value wasn't determined by how much I sacrificed for people who didn't appreciate it. My phone rang continuously for the first hour of the drive. I turned it off completely and drove in silence, watching the city fade into suburbs, then rural landscape, then the first glimpses of ocean through the trees. By the time I checked into the bed and breakfast at 2 p.m., I felt lighter than I had in years. The room was beautiful. Hardwood floors, a 4-poster bed with white linens, French doors opening onto a balcony with direct ocean views. The sound of waves was constant and soothing. I unpacked slowly, arranged my things with care, then changed into comfortable clothes and walked down to the beach. The sand was cold and damp, the wind sharp with salt. Seagulls wheeled overhead. The ocean stretched endlessly toward the horizon. I stood at the water's edge and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back for days. Anger at my family, grief for the relationships that had never been what I'd needed them to be, guilt about Sarah's suicide attempt, fear about the legal proceedings to come, and underneath it all, a fierce pride in having finally stood up for myself. Sarah had tried to kill herself. That was real and terrible and heartbreaking, but it didn't change the fundamental truth. She'd committed fraud. She'd stolen from me, and she'd expected the family to protect her from consequences, just like they always had. The suicide attempt was tragic, but it was also the culmination of 32 years of enabling. Every time the family had rescued Sarah from the natural consequences of her actions, they'd reinforced the idea that she'd never have to face reality. Every time they'd prioritized her feelings over everyone else's well-being, they'd taught her that manipulation and drama would get her what she wanted. I hadn't caused Sarah's suicide attempt. Sarah's inability to cope with accountability had caused it, and while I felt genuine sorrow that she'd reached that point, I also knew that rushing back to absolve her and erase the consequences would only restart the cycle. The waves crashed against the shore, steady and eternal, caring nothing about human drama or family dysfunction. The ocean didn't take sides or keep score. It just existed, powerful and indifferent, wearing down mountains over millennia. I wanted to be like that, not indifferent to suffering, but unmoved by manipulation, strong enough to maintain my boundaries even when people tried to guilt me into crossing them, stable enough to weather storms without losing myself. I walked along the beach until sunset, then returned to the bed and breakfast for dinner. The restaurant was small and elegant, with only 8 tables and a menu that changed daily. I ordered the special, pan-seared halibut with risotto, and a glass of wine that cost more than my usual grocery budget. The food was extraordinary. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, reading a book between courses. No conversation, no family drama, just good food and the quiet pleasure of my own company. After dinner, I soaked in the clawfoot tub in my room, using the lavender bath salts the innkeeper had provided. I turned my phone on long enough to check for emergencies, saw 43 missed calls and 67 text messages, and turned it off again without reading any of them. Tomorrow, I'd deal with reality. Tomorrow, I'd probably have to make decisions about Sarah's situation, about legal proceedings, about family relationships. But tonight was still mine. Tonight, I was 30 years old, soaking in a beautiful tub in a coastal inn, celebrating the birthday that had almost been stolen from me. I thought about Sarah in the psych ward at Harborview, about my parents probably sitting at her bedside, about the family narrative that was undoubtedly forming about heartless Rebecca, who'd pushed her sensitive sister over the edge. Let them build that narrative. Let them make me the villain. I knew the truth, and more importantly, I knew my own value. And that was worth more than their approval had ever been. I returned home Sunday evening to find my apartment building surrounded by news vans. Apparently, Sarah's suicide attempt had leaked to the press, and reporters had connected it to the art fraud story. The narrative they were running was predictable. Troubled artist driven to desperation by vengeful sister. I parked down the street and called Maria. I can't get into my apartment. There are reporters everywhere. Can I crash at your place tonight? Absolutely. I'll text you the address. Maria's apartment was 15 minutes away in a neighborhood reporters hadn't discovered yet. She opened the door wearing pajamas and holding a glass of wine. Come in. I saw the news. They're crucifying you. I expected that. I set my bag down and collapsed on her couch. Sarah's suicide attempt is the perfect story for them. Artistic soul destroyed by cruel, heartless sister. Never mind the fraud or the theft or the 8 years of family dysfunction that led to this point. You know the hospital grapevine is faster than actual news, right? I heard through 3 different sources that Sarah's attempt involved taking 15 Benadryl and texting her ex-boyfriend about it. The doctors aren't even sure it was a genuine attempt versus a cry for attention. I looked up sharply. 15 Benadryl? That's what I heard. Enough to make her sick, but nowhere near lethal. She made sure someone would find her in time. Maria sat down across from me. I'm not saying her mental health issues aren't real, but the timing is convenient, and the dosage suggests she didn't actually want to die. 15 Benadryl, not prescription medication, not something difficult to obtain or clearly lethal. Over-the-counter allergy medication that would make her violently ill, but was unlikely to actually kill her. And she'd texted her ex-boyfriend, someone she knew would either call for help or call the family, ensuring she'd be found quickly. It was exactly what Sarah would do. Dramatic enough to shift the narrative, scary enough to make the family rally around her, but controlled enough that she'd survive to accept their sympathy. I'm a terrible person for being relieved, I said. You're a realistic person for recognizing a pattern. Maria handed me a glass of wine. What are you going to do? Survive this. Wait for it to blow over. Cooperate with the legal proceedings against her, and refuse to feel guilty for something I didn't cause. My phone buzzed. I'd turned it back on during the drive home. A text from Richard Morrison, David Reeves' lawyer. Media coverage has intensified interest in the case. The prosecutor's office has indicated they'll likely file criminal fraud charges against Sarah Thornwood within the week. Your testimony will be essential. Please contact me to schedule a formal statement. Another text, this one from Patricia Holbrook. The suicide attempt story is everywhere. Would you like to provide a statement to balance the narrative? People should know the full context. And finally, one from Marcus Whitley. Rebecca, I'm deeply sorry about your sister's hospitalization. However, the gallery must proceed with legal action to protect our reputation. Your commission check is in the mail. Thank you again for your integrity. I showed the messages to Maria. It's escalating. Good. Sarah committed fraud. She should face consequences. The fact that she had a mental health crisis doesn't erase what she did. Maria refilled her wine glass. You know what I think? I think Sarah's whole suicide attempt was calculated. She saw the legal walls closing in, realized the family protection wasn't working this time, and decided to try the ultimate manipulation. Make you look like a monster so everyone would pressure you to drop the case. It might work. The media is already making me the villain. The media will move on to the next story in 3 days, but criminal fraud charges are permanent. So is your self-respect. Maria raised her glass. To refusing to be manipulated. I clinked my glass against hers. To boundaries. Monday morning, I returned to work. The reporters had mostly dispersed from my apartment building, probably chasing some other story. The hospital security had been briefed to keep media out of the building, so I felt relatively safe once I was through the doors. My coworkers rallied around me. Someone had taped an article to the break room wall with a note. Rebecca is a hero for exposing fraud. Support our colleague. Another nurse had left a card on my locker. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you different. But there were also whispers. I heard fragments of conversations that stopped when I walked by. Her own sister. Suicide attempt. Pretty harsh. Not everyone was on my side, and I couldn't blame them. From the outside, without knowing the full history, I probably did look cruel. During my lunch break, I met with Richard Morrison at a coffee shop near the hospital. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an intensity that suggested he took David's case personally. Thank you for meeting with me, he said after we'd ordered. I'll be direct. The prosecutor wants to move forward with criminal fraud charges. But with Sarah's hospitalization and the media sympathy she's generating, they're nervous. Your testimony could make or break this case. What do you need from me? Everything. The timeline of events, documentation of the stolen money, your relationship history with Sarah, evidence of premeditation. We need to show this wasn't an impulsive mistake. This was calculated fraud that she planned and executed deliberately. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I have bank statements showing the $3,000 charge for the Vegas trip. I have the email where Sarah CC'd the family about her gallery show 2 months before she claimed she didn't know about it. I have text messages from her asking to borrow money that was never repaid, and I have 8 years of family history showing a pattern of manipulation and theft that everyone ignored. Richard's eyes lit up. That's perfect. Can you send all of that to me? Already done. I'd forwarded everything to his email address before arriving. And you're willing to testify, even knowing it might send your sister to jail? My sister committed fraud. She stole another artist's work. She stole my money, and she tried to build a career on lies. Yes, I'll testify. What about the suicide attempt? The defense will use that to paint you as heartless. They'll argue that your exposure of Sarah's fraud directly caused her mental health crisis. Sarah has been threatening suicide for manipulation purposes since she was 16. Every time she faces consequences, every time someone holds her accountable, she escalates to self-harm threats. This wasn't about genuine despair. This was about deflecting from criminal charges. I met his eyes steadily. I have a medical background. 15 Benadryl while texting an ex-boyfriend isn't a serious suicide attempt. It's theater. Richard leaned back in his chair. You're tougher than I expected. I'm a nurse. I've held dying patients' hands and told families their loved ones didn't make it. I've performed CPR knowing it was probably futile. I've worked double shifts in understaffed conditions and maintained professional composure while people screamed at me. I took a sip of my coffee. My sister's manipulation tactics don't scare me anymore. Good. Because this is going to get ugly. The defense will paint you as jealous, vindictive, and responsible for Sarah's mental breakdown. The media will probably run with that narrative. Your family will pressure you to recant. Are you prepared for that? I've already lost my family. The media will move on eventually, and I have nothing to recant because I told the truth. I stood up. Send me the paperwork for my formal statement. I'll sign it tonight. Richard stood as well, extending his hand. David was right about you. You're exactly the kind of person who should win. I shook his hand. Make sure David's show in March is incredible. That's the real victory here. A talented artist getting recognition instead of a fraud stealing his success. Back at the hospital, I received a message from Dorothy Castellano, my hip fracture patient from last week. She'd been discharged over the weekend, but had apparently asked the nurses to pass along her number. I called her during my afternoon break. Rebecca, I saw you on the news. What a mess. That's one way to describe it. I wanted you to know I called that reporter, Patricia something, and gave her a piece of my mind. Told her about real family dynamics, about how sometimes the only way to stop enabling is to let consequences happen. Don't know if she'll run it, but I tried. I felt tears prick my eyes. Dorothy, you didn't have to do that. Of course I did. You helped me when I was lying in a hospital bed in pain. I'm just returning the favor. Besides, I spent 40 years watching my daughter suffer because I told her to stay in a terrible marriage. I'm not going to watch another young woman get destroyed for doing the brave thing. Thank you. Really? How are you holding up? I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I went to the coast for the weekend. Stayed at a beautiful inn, had amazing food, spent 2 days reading and walking on the beach. It was exactly what I needed. Good. That's the thing they don't tell you about setting boundaries. After the initial explosion, you get peace. Real peace. The kind you can't have when you're constantly managing other people's emotions. After we hung up, I sat in the break room thinking about Dorothy's words. Peace. That's what I'd felt this weekend, even knowing about Sarah's hospitalization, even with reporters camped outside my apartment. Underneath the chaos and the stress and the legal proceedings, there was a foundation of peace that hadn't existed before. The peace of knowing I'd done the right thing. The peace of having boundaries and defending them. The peace of valuing myself enough to refuse to be manipulated. Wednesday afternoon, I gave my formal statement to the prosecutor's office. 2 hours of detailed testimony about the Vegas trip, the stolen money, Sarah's fraud, and the family history of enabling. The assistant district attorney, a woman named Jennifer Chen, no relation to my cousin, was thorough and professional. This is one of the clearest fraud cases I've seen, she said after we finished. Premeditation, theft, attempted career advancement through fraud, and a pattern of deceptive behavior. The defense will play up the mental health angle, but the facts are on our side. When will charges be filed? Friday morning. Sarah will be arraigned the following week, assuming she's released from psychiatric care by then. Jennifer closed her folder. Ms. Thornwood, I want you to know that bringing fraud charges against a family member is incredibly difficult. What you're doing takes courage. I'm not trying to be courageous. I'm just trying to stop enabling fraud. Same thing, really. I drove home in the late afternoon traffic, my hands steady on the wheel, my mind clearer than it had been in weeks. The legal process was moving forward. David would get justice. Sarah would face consequences. and I would rebuild my life without the constant weight of family dysfunction dragging me down. When I got home, there was a package waiting outside my door. I picked it up carefully, checking the return address. It was from David Reeves. Inside was a small canvas, maybe 12 inches by 12 inches, showing an abstract ocean scene in blues and greens with touches of gold. A note was attached. Rebecca, this is an original piece I painted this week. It's called Vindication. You gave me back my career and my faith in justice. This is a small thank you. Your testimony made all the difference. The show in March is dedicated to you, the person who proved that sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone. Thank you for your courage. To David, I hung the painting in my living room, where I'd see it every day when I came home from work. A reminder that truth mattered, that integrity mattered, that standing up to fraud, even family fraud, was worth the cost. Thursday evening, my mother left one final voicemail. I listened to it while eating dinner. Rebecca, the charges are being filed tomorrow. Sarah is being released from the hospital tomorrow morning, and she'll be arrested shortly after. Your father and I have hired a lawyer, but he says the case is strong because of your testimony. You still have time to change your mind. You still have time to refuse to testify, to tell them this was all a misunderstanding. Sarah is getting help. She's on medication now. She's in therapy. Can't that be enough? Does she really need a criminal record too? I'm begging you, as your mother, please don't destroy your sister's life. Call me. Please. I deleted the voicemail without responding. Friday morning, I woke up to news alerts on my phone. Local artist charged with fraud. Sarah Thornwood faces criminal charges after gallery scandal. Sister's testimony leads to arrest in art fraud case. It was done. Sarah had been arrested. The legal process was officially underway. There was no going back, no undoing it, no softening it. I got ready for work, made coffee, and checked my email. There was a message from Jennifer, my cousin. Becca, David's show in March is already generating buzz. Pre-sales are happening. The Morrison Gallery wants to offer him a 2-year contract. His career is launching exactly as it should have from the beginning. You did this. You saved an artist's career by exposing fraud. I hope you're proud of yourself, because I'm proud of you. Jay, I was proud of myself. For the first time in 30 years, I was genuinely proud of who I was and what I'd done. Not because I'd sacrificed or compromised or made everyone else happy, but because I'd stood up for what was right, defended my boundaries, and refused to enable fraud. Sarah would face consequences. My family would have to reckon with their role in creating this situation. And I would move forward, building a life based on integrity instead of obligation. The media would eventually move on. The legal case would resolve itself. My family might never forgive me, but I'd sleep soundly knowing I'd done the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it was painful, even when it cost me relationships I'd once thought were essential. Because some things, integrity, self-respect, justice, were worth more than family approval. And I was finally free. 6 months later, I stood in the Morrison Gallery on a Thursday evening in March, watching David Reeves work the room at his solo exhibition opening. His paintings, the real ones, properly credited and beautifully displayed, lined the walls. Prices ranged from $3,000 to $8,000, and red sold dots were appearing rapidly. Jennifer, my cousin, appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. 7 paintings sold in the first hour. David's career is officially launched. He deserves every bit of success. I accepted the champagne and took a sip. You know he credits you in every interview? Calls you the person who saved his career. The gallery owner told me David refused to do the show anywhere except Seattle because he wanted you to be able to attend. David noticed us watching him and excused himself from a conversation with a collector. He made his way over, grinning. Rebecca, you came. I wouldn't miss this. I gestured around the gallery. It's incredible, David. Your work is getting the recognition it always deserved, because of you. He gripped my hand warmly. Seriously, none of this would have happened if you hadn't exposed what Sarah did. The publicity from the case actually helped. People wanted to know about the real artist behind the fraud scandal. It turned into the kind of marketing money can't buy. How's the legal case going on your end? Settled. Sarah's lawyer reached out last week. She's paying me $15,000 in restitution, the estimated value of the 6 paintings plus damages. I'm donating it all to a fund for emerging artists who've been victims of fraud. His expression turned serious. I heard she took a plea deal. I nodded. Sarah had accepted a plea agreement 2 weeks ago. 18 months probation, 500 hours of community service, mandatory therapy, and restitution payments to both David and the gallery. No jail time, but a permanent criminal record. My mother had left me one final voicemail after the sentencing. I hope you're happy. Your sister is a convicted criminal now. Our family name is ruined, but at least you got your revenge. I deleted it without responding. I deleted all of their messages, blocked all of their numbers, and moved on with my life. How are you doing? David asked gently. I know this destroyed your family relationships. My family relationships were already toxic. This just made it obvious. I smiled. I'm good, actually. Really good. I got promoted at work last month, charge nurse position. I went to Paris in January. I'm moving to a bigger apartment next week. Life is better without the constant weight of family dysfunction. Good for you. He raised his glass. To choosing yourself. To choosing yourself, I echoed, and we drank. Later that evening, I walked through the gallery alone, studying David's paintings. They were technically brilliant and emotionally resonant. Exactly the kind of work that deserved recognition. Sarah's attempt to steal his success would have buried this talent under lies and fraud. But instead, David was thriving. I was thriving. The truth had come out. Justice had been served. And the only people who'd suffered permanent damage were the ones who'd committed and enabled fraud. My phone buzzed. A text from Maria. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate your promotion? My treat. I texted back. Absolutely. 7 p.m.? Perfect. Proud of you, friend. I smiled and put my phone away. I had real friends now, people who supported my boundaries and celebrated my successes. I had a career I'd built myself, a life I was proud of, and a future that wasn't weighed down by toxic family obligations. On my way out of the gallery, I passed a mirror and caught my reflection. 30 years old, wearing a dress I'd bought with my own money, attending an art show that existed because I'd refused to let fraud continue. I looked different than I had 6 months ago. More confident, more settled, more at peace. The old Rebecca would have been at some family dinner tonight, listening to Sarah complain about her probation while everyone else tiptoed around the elephant in the room. The old Rebecca would have been expected to apologize, to make peace, to put the family back together. But the old Rebecca was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who understood that sometimes love meant letting people face consequences, that sometimes the kindest thing you could do was refuse to enable destruction. I walked out of the gallery into the cool March evening, leaving behind the art show that never would have happened if I'd stayed silent about fraud. The city lights reflected off rain-slicked streets. Somewhere across town, Sarah was probably sitting in our parents' house, bitter and angry, blaming me for consequences she'd created herself. And I was here, free and whole, building a life that didn't require me to sacrifice my integrity to maintain relationships with people who'd never valued me. 6 months ago, my family had canceled my birthday to attend Sarah's fraudulent gallery opening. Tonight, I'd attended a real gallery opening celebrating an artist who deserved success, and my family wasn't invited. The symmetry was almost poetic. I drove home to my apartment, where David's painting hung on my living room wall. Vindication, in blues and greens and gold, a permanent reminder that truth mattered, that integrity had value, that standing up to fraud, even family fraud, was worth whatever it cost. Tomorrow, I'd work another shift saving lives. Next week, I'd move to a bigger apartment in a better neighborhood. Next month, I'd probably book another trip. Maybe Greece or Ireland or somewhere I'd always wanted to visit but never had because family obligations consumed my time and money. Sarah would spend the next 18 months on probation, performing community service, paying restitution, and living with the permanent stain of a fraud conviction. My parents would continue enabling her, making excuses, pretending that mean Rebecca had destroyed their family instead of acknowledging that Sarah's choices and their enabling had created this disaster. And I would continue living my life, free from the obligation to protect people from their own consequences, free from the exhausting work of maintaining relationships that only ever drained me, free from the lie that family loyalty meant accepting abuse and fraud. Some people would always see me as the villain in this story, the sister who destroyed her siblings' dreams, who chose revenge over forgiveness, who valued justice over family unity. But I knew the truth. I wasn't the villain. I was the person who finally said no to fraud, who drew a boundary and defended it, who chose self-respect over family approval. And that person, the real Rebecca, not the doormat the family had created, was finally, genuinely happy. 6 months ago, I'd stood in a gallery watching my sister's fraudulent dreams crumble. Tonight, I'd stood in a gallery watching a real artist's dreams flourish. Both events happened because I'd decided my integrity mattered more than keeping the peace. And I'd make that choice again, every single time.